Today, we're looking at a blue ink by Sailor, very cleverly named Blue. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. And if you like videos like that, I would invite you to subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram, and there's timestamps down below so that if you are in a hurry, you can skip around. But if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. To make sure I have a range of experience, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Parker Jotter with a medium nib to write for a day and take the notes for this video. In order to standardize, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper in this first writing sample. There will be more writing samples on different papers later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is lighter than the stub, quite a bit lighter, with no feather spread, halo sheen, a nice peppering of shading throughout, 10 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and still that nice pepper of shading throughout the writing, 15 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of both does show some color variation, and that's the peppering of shading that we're getting in the writing. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 20 seconds to dry. Medium is just a tad darker than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 26 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show no color variation, and we didn't get any. And Rhodia with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, a peppering of shading throughout, 12 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and a very nice peppering of shading throughout for 16 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show color variation left to right, and that's the peppering of shading that we're getting. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see that it really immediately starts pushing its way up. It is leaving some behind as it goes and gathering quite a bit at the top. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And it's reversed. It's really staying at the bottom, really bonding with the filter paper quickly, and then what's left over is pushing its way up. Does mean I expect some resistance. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I'm a little bothered that the lowercase h blew out the way it did. It makes me say I would not use it in a note-taking situation. Water is not having a huge effect on this ink, although that's all that I needed to get it out of my pen. Pen flush is completely breaking this ink up. You're seeing the white of the paper come through where the pen flush was, and it was only there for 30 seconds. Now 1/3 bleach solution completely removes it, but leaves this kind of brown staining on the paper. But again, I only used water to get this out of my pen. I test viscosity or flow by using a tilt test that I've linked in this video. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Sailor's Blue has a viscosity of 1.42, making this a very wet ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples, and for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Sailor's Blue has an average dry time of 17 seconds, making it not just normal, but average. Instead of finding inks that look like Sailor's Blue, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted a nice brown, and I chose Noodler's Kiowa Pecan. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, Life, and Franklin Christoph paper. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia, not to see any kind of performance difference, but to see tone changes that you might get for using it on a yellow paper. Now you do see that all of these get a little bit lighter in tone, but they don't shift towards a green at all. They only lighten up a bit. So it still is a nice blue in a professional environment if you use yellow paper. Here we're seeing Life paper. Now there's no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, a peppering of shading throughout with 9 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine. With no feather spread, halo sheen, still get that very nice peppering of shading throughout. I think it's slightly more obvious for the broader lines here, and 15 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color the scrubby for both show us some color variation left to right, and that is the peppering that we're seeing up in the writing. Last up is Franklin Christoph paper, where we get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does have a peppering of shading throughout with 4 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen. There's the peppering of shading, but it's not as obvious as it was with the extra fine, and 7 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both left to right do show some color variation, and we are getting that in the writing, and that is all that I have for the writing samples. So what do I think of Sailor's Blue? This is a very well-behaved, nice, dark blue. It performs very well, it's very well-behaved, and occasionally you get little pepperings of shading. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? It's very permanent, so keeping that in mind, a very dry pen is going to give you the opportunity to get a nice blue with some of that shading coming through, where a very wet pen is going to be just slightly darker, but sacrifice the shading. If you've enjoyed this video, remember, I like thumbs up, you like thumbs up, everybody likes thumbs up. Unless you didn't like it, then give me the thumbs down. Both are good. Thanks for watching.